everyone, and welcome to What's the Buzz, a program about all of the incredible happenings at the Attleboro Council on Aging. We are back here with Joe Feroce because we ran out of time with the last taping, because he's going to speak with us about the Senior Circuit Breaker tax credit. See, even that I have to pause and make sure that I'm saying that correctly, Joe. So, welcome back.
Thank you. As she said, as Kelly said, I'm Joe Feroce. I'm a volunteer with AARP in their Tax-Aide program. We have, it's a group that provides free tax returns for primarily for seniors, but not restricted to seniors. And we will be coming to the Attleboro Council on Aging, or possibly another spot in Attleboro from early February to mid-April, actually doing free tax returns. We're people who are in Attleboro. We've got, I think, we should have 7 or 8 volunteers, including myself. So it's a fairly good size group. Is that more than last year, Joe? Well, to tell you the truth, I really don't know, because we're just like in the recruiting phase now, and I'm not even sure whether we even have any new recruits from Attleboro. We've got, I actually cover 10 different sites, and so the recruiting is overall for those sites. And one of the guys who volunteers with me is the one who contacts the various recruits as their names show up in the AARP Foundation website as a potential tax volunteer. His name is Rick Gillette. He contacts them, talks about the program, and if there is a potential match, they go through the CORI procedure, the background check, and then they'll be invited to our training sessions, which will be in December and January. And then if that all goes through and they pass the test, then they'll be volunteers next year. So I'm not sure. I think we have at least 5 or 6 so far potential volunteers for the district, but it doesn't mean they'll be volunteering in Attleboro. But I think that all the people from last year will return this year, as far as I know. So, wonderful, yeah. Wonderful. And you're always looking for new recruits. I think you mentioned that. We're always looking for new recruits. Yeah, people can sign up anytime, and if it's off season, because sometimes we'll get people who are showing up in the as a potential volunteer, like in January or February or March, and it's we're halfway through the season, so it's impossible to get them up and running for the current year. So we will at least contact them, and if it seems to be an interest, then we'll put them on the list for the next season. That's great. So hopefully, we have some good years with recruiting and some years not so good. So. Okay, so should we start today with an overview of this program? Yeah, we can do that. As I said, I talked about the recruiting, and then we all go through training in December and January, and then we all have to pass a test. It's a 3-section test that has to be. You have to pass by the end of January. It's open book. We try to cover the important topics in the training sessions to help the new volunteers be able to pass. And even actually everybody has to pass the test every year. Even me, even the state coordinator. So is that specific to the circuit breaker tax credit? No. This is just to become an AARP tax volunteer. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, and then depending on if you're going to be a person who's actually doing taxes, then you have to pass 3 different tests. I won't go into them, but if you're just going to be somebody who would facilitate, like maybe meet and greet the taxpayers as they come in, go through their documents and get them ready to have their returns done. Those people, we call them client facilitators. They only have to pass 1 or 2 sections of the test. They don't have to know how to do the tax software.
Understood.
Yeah.
So how does the circuit breaker program dovetail into this?
So Massachusetts in 2020 initiated a special tax credit for seniors. And as Kelly said, it's called the Senior Circuit Breaker Tax Credit. It's for homeowners or renters. There are requirements to be eligible. Number 1, if you're a single person, you have to be 65 in the tax year. If you're a married couple, either one has to be 65, and it's by December 31 of the tax year. So if one of the persons is 65 on December 31, 2024, they would be eligible for the special tax credit. So that's the number 1 eligibility. There's a limitation on your total income. And I won't go into the details, but it's in the range of $70,000 for a single person. Let me see. Around $90,000 for head of household, and a little over $100,000 if you're a married couple. So if your total income is below that level, you turn 65. There's also a cap on the value of your home, but it's over $1 million. So far, I don't think I've seen anybody who didn't qualify because their home was valued too highly. So, especially in Attleboro.
Yeah.
So those are 3 qualifications. Then there is, if you satisfy all those, then it's actually a calculation. And the calculation is based upon if you're a homeowner, the amount you pay for property tax plus half of your water bill. If you add those 2 numbers together, if it's more than 10% of your total income, then you may qualify for this credit, okay? And the amount of the credit, it started at, I have it in here. The first year, 2001, it was $385. In 2024, it is now, the maximum is now $2,740. You can actually get a credit, and it's a refundable credit on your Massachusetts tax return. So you must file a tax return to get this credit. And even if you have no taxable income, you could conceivably get up to $2,740 back from the state of Massachusetts, from the Commonwealth. Yeah, it's up to that amount. And it depends. It could be from $1 to $2,740.
Okay.
So it's not like if you qualify, you get the max. You qualify. It depends on how much over the cap you are, and it can be up to that amount. So for homeowner, it's based on your property tax plus half your water bill. If you are a renter and you're paying a normal kind of rent, not in subsidized housing, and it's 25% of your rent for this calculation is considered equivalent to property tax. So if 25% of your rent is more than 10% of that total income, then you may also qualify as a renter, and with the same cap up to $2,740. Okay, so that's kind of the simplest way to explain it. There are wrinkles. If you're in assisted living, there are other qualifications. If you own like a duplex and you rent out half of it, then you can only take half of the property tax.
Makes sense.
Not 100%. So there are some other wrinkles to it. And one other kind of a key feature is that every year there are people who are just learning about this for the first time. And let's say that you're 70 and you're just hearing about this for the first time and you may qualify. We are able to go back 3 years and do amendments back to going back 3 years, and you may qualify to get the circuit breaker. Well, potentially, if it's done on time, you could get it for the current year and 3 prior years if you haven't previously qualified. So,
is this unique to Massachusetts, or do other states?
This particular one is unique to Massachusetts, but I believe other states have similar credits for property tax owners. I know that for homeowners or renters. I know that Rhode Island also has, it has a different name, and theirs I think is a fixed amount that I think was $400, that if your income is below a certain level, then you may get the $400 credit on your taxes. That amount may be different now, but but Mass has had it since 2001. Rhode Island has had it maybe at least 5 years, perhaps a bit more than that. Other states I'm not really familiar with, but I think there are other credits available. And this one in Massachusetts, as I said, you must file a Massachusetts state tax return in order to get this credit. And I'll tell you, once the seniors know it's available, they'll when they call up for their appointment, they'll say, "I'm just coming in for the circuit breaker," because they know that they if they qualified the previous year, chances are they'll qualify the current year. So,
if somebody wasn't able to do that through the AARP tax program, could they go elsewhere to have this done?
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, any tax preparer, especially a professional one, the larger organizations, H&R Block, they surely know about this credit. Liberty Taxes across the street from the Senior Center, if you go there, they would know it. And also any private tax preparers who operate in Massachusetts would clearly know about it. One thing we do find, because we're in Attleboro, we're on the border of Rhode Island, we occasionally have somebody who they may work in Rhode Island, they live in Massachusetts, they may have had their taxes done with a Rhode Island preparer, and there may be some who don't know about the credit for Massachusetts. We've come across that maybe 1 or 2 a year, where the people are, as we're doing their return, we see, oh, by the way, you qualify for this tax credit. Oh, really? Yeah, and then we look at last year's, and I can see that you didn't get this last year, so we can do the amendments for you. There are always at least a couple every year where we will go back and do 3 more years, amendments only, as long as they've filed.
That must make some people very, very happy.
Oh, some of them get very, very happy. Yeah. Yeah. Up until 22, the maximum was $1,200, and it used to go up like $20 or $30 a year. In 23, when Governor Healy was elected, she proposed to double the max on this, and the Senate and the House were both very supportive. So it literally doubled in 2023, and then it was also adjusted for inflation. So the max went from $1,200 to $2,590 in 23, and then in 24 it's going to $2,740.
Okay.
It's gone up by another $150.
Wow, that's interesting. And does that change every year?
As far as I know, it has gone up. It has gone up every year. I didn't look back historically. There might have been 1 year when there was like 0 inflation. Maybe 2007, 2008 frame when in that time frame. There may have been a year where it stayed the same, but since I've been doing taxes, it has gone up. Used to be 20 to 30, then it doubled in 23, and now another 150 this year. So,
how many people on average do the tax preparers see that are going for or may qualify for this tax credit?
I'm going to say we usually, in Attleboro, we generally see around 100 people who qualify. So maybe 20% of those who come in. In some cities, like for example, I also volunteer in Sharon, the exact same tax program. Sharon, where the property taxes are nearly double Attleboro's, there's a higher percent. 30-40% may qualify, and my colleagues who do Westwood, another town with very high taxes, there might be over 50% who are qualifying because their property taxes are so high, and as long as they're within the income limits, then
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any other special changes regarding this year's?
I don't really know, not of anything. We have our state coordinator organizes what we call a kickoff meeting, which is coming up in, I think it's the week after next. And in that meeting, we will learn some of the highlights about potential other changes for 2024, either at the federal level or at the state level. We have the state coordinator of training would normally present some of that. There isn't a lot of talk about any major changes, so I don't suspect that. I don't suspect there are many other changes for 24 taxes.
Could the election have any impact on that?
Yes, because both candidates are talking about other changes in the tax law. So we suspect that in 25 there might be significant changes, and it's impossible to know at this point what that would be. There's also in the previous tax reduction when Trump was elected, where there was significant changes in the tax law, that law actually expires in 26. So there's questions on whether that would be extended, either temporarily, or I suppose if Trump wins, he may want to make them. They may try to make them permanent. So there'll be more changes in 25 and 6 than we're seeing this year. So. And I think that's kind of common. Generally, when a new president comes in, they want to make some kind of changes, and then in the second, third, and fourth years of their stay as president, that there won't be quite as many changes. Yeah. This particular one is just strictly Massachusetts.
Are there other tax credits that viewers might be interested in?
There's one for, well, there are credits for solar panels, which are federal credits, and there are credits for what do they call it? If you certain home improvements may qualify for a tax credit, like if you put in a new hot water heater, if you put in new windows, they may qualify. If you buy a new furnace, so there are credits like that may be available. Okay, at the federal level.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
State level, a lot of times you may get some kind of an abatement but that would be from the electric company or your power company for certain products that you buy. Even like I think certain washing machines might qualify for an abatement from Mass Save.
For energy efficiency.
For energy efficiency,
Sure.
Energy efficient, right. So those are around too, but they're not. Those are abatements from the utility company, not on your tax return. The circuit breaker is strictly from and you must file a Massachusetts return in order to get that. I have a presentation on this, which I did it in December last year for at the Attleboro Council on Aging, and actually one other, also Plainville. So more than likely I'll do a more detailed presentation in December, January.
That was very well attended.
Yeah, we had quite a few people. There's always somebody every year who is just learning about it now by talking to a neighbor. That's something like that, yeah. So.
And that might be of value to actually tape that so that we could give it to our friends at AACS, and maybe they'd be able to post that for people that aren't able to be there in person.
Yeah, possibly, because also at any of those presentations, there were a lot of good questions from the residents with their own personal story, and then I think, hopefully, my answers will then help them to understand it better, because it's a bit complicated, and but it's a relatively simple calculation. But I think to explain it is a little bit complicated. But so the presentation would help. Yeah, we can do that. No
Speaking
problem.
of those unique situations, I'm certain that over the years you must have some success stories or things that have kind of impacted you because you've helped people in money savings, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, there's one that really sticks in my mind. It was so unusual. It goes back, it's got to be 10 years. But this gentleman came to one of the outreach workers, the former outreach workers who at the Council on Aging, and he had a bill from the IRS. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was more than $30,000.
Oh, goodness.
So the outreach worker approached me, Joe, do you think you can help this guy out? I said, well, I can try. So he did not get around too well, so I had to actually go to his house. And eventually, I did find out that he had sold a house in Florida, and it was about 10 years before that, and it had not been reported on his tax return. So the IRS, when they did their audit, they discovered this sale of a house. I'm just going to say that it was $300,000, and they assigned no cost to it. So they billed him they sent him a bill as if he had sold this $300,000 home with no cost. And it was initially about $20,000 of tax, federal tax, but then they had tacked on interest because it had been a few years. So this gentleman was very difficult to communicate with. When I'd arrive, he'd start talking about anything except why I was there, which was to try to figure out how I could help this gentleman. So it took a year. And eventually, it finally came out, and it took a lot of prying, that he had sold his house in Florida, and it had not been reported. And believe it or not, I found, by going to the Zillow website, believe it or not, how much he sold it for, because it had the record, and how much he bought it for. Because it showed that. I found it in Zillow. Otherwise, that guy would still owe this, probably would be up to 40 grand by now. And so I did an amended return for him, sent it in, and eventually he got a phone call from an IRS tax assistance person who had seen the return, and I happened to be at his house when she called him, luckily. So then I gave her as much information as I could. There was also a question on whether he was married or whether he was single at the time. But anyway, she gave the approval on this telephone call, and his $30,000+ tax bill went away. It went down to zero. He owed nothing. Because he did have a cost, and also he qualified for the exemption. When you sell a home, if you've owned it for more than 2 years and lived in it, up to $250,000 of your gain is not taxable. And if you're a married couple, it's up to $500,000.
Okay.
So he qualified for that. And this tax assistance person from the IRS, she understood and she approved it right on the spot, and his tax bill went away. So.
And he made a significant contribution to the Friends of the Larson Senior Center after that? That you saved him?
I don't recall. Tell you the truth, it was such a relief to have this done. This gentleman was very, very difficult to work with.
Sounds it.
Yeah, he was a character.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's quite a story
so
to
end on. That's one of my more famous, very unique situation. But it is kind of critical if you do sell your house. Some of them get reported to the IRS. Some of them do not. It's supposed to be $250,000. If it's under, supposedly it doesn't get reported to the IRS. Okay. But we always tell the people, no, let's report it anyway. Chances are you're going to qualify for no tax because of the exemption. You're not going to have any capital gains on it. So it's safer to report the sale of your home on your tax return, even though it should have no impact, but it's safer to put it there just in case. So, and
good
partly was from that gentleman's experience.
He set the stage for policy.
He set the stage.
Okay,
yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, Joe, thank you so much. This has been very, very informative. And then for the viewers, to just a gentle reminder to keep notice of the Attleboro Council on Aging's newsletter, the next one for December and January, and we hope to have it confirmed in terms of the location that hopefully comes with ease of parking and access. So we're exploring those opportunities. Wi-Fi seems to be the determining factor with what we're looking at, but we're exploring different options so that it can make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, I have one of my volunteers is more technically astute than I am, so my plan is to contact him and maybe go to the rec center and check it out, see if he can come up with some ideas, and maybe in contact with the MIS from the city.
We can definitely explore
to see if something can be worked out. We were looking at possibly going to the rec center. The space is a little better and
parking
there's better
definitely
parking.
is.
But the plan is to have a notice, as Kelly said in the December-January newsletter, and that will have also the date when you may start calling in and requesting an appointment. I think some have already started calling in.
They have.
It's a little bit early to make appointments because we're not sure of the dates. We're not sure of how many volunteers we have. So
a lot of to be determined.
A lot of to be determined, yes.
Great. Well, thank you, Joe. And we'll see everybody next time on What's the Buzz. Have a good day.